Do you remember the black celebrities who once lit up the world with their brilliance, only to now be quietly battling for their lives? These stars were once larger than life, adored by millions and etched into our hearts as timeless icons. But behind the fame and flashing lights, a different story has been unfolding. Today, many of them are facing serious health struggles. Their appearances changed so drastically they're almost unrecognizable. Beneath the glamour lies a hidden reality, one filled with pain, resilience, and long, silent fights against illness, as time slowly takes its toll. Poor they. What have they been going through all these years? Stay with us as we reveal 25 black celebrities fighting illness every single day, uncovering a deeply emotional truth that will change the way you see the legends you once believed would live forever. Samuel L. Jackson, a true Hollywood icon, has built a career that spans decades, commanding the screen in unforgettable films like Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, and The Avengers. With his signature voice and undeniable presence, he rose to become one of the highest-grossing actors in cinematic history. But behind that towering success lies a story far darker and far more human than most people realize. Long before the fame, before the red carpets and standing ovations, Jackson was fighting a silent war. In the 1970s and 80s, as he struggled to find his place in Hollywood, he turned to drugs as a way to escape the pressure and uncertainty. What began as a coping mechanism quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous. At first, he believed he was in control, until the addiction took control of him. Then came the night that changed everything. Under the flickering neon glow of Los Angeles, Jackson collapsed, his body giving out, his consciousness slipping away. He was found unconscious from an overdose by his wife, LaTanya Richardson, and their daughter, Zoe Jackson. Panic. Fear. A moment that could have ended it all. But instead, it became his wake-up call. Determined to reclaim his life, Jackson checked into rehab. It wasn't easy. The withdrawal, the sleepless nights, the physical toll, it pushed him to his limits. Even today, the scars remain, with lingering heart palpitations as a reminder of how close he came to losing everything. But quitting wasn't an option. This was a fight he had to win. And then, something extraordinary happened. Not long after leaving rehab, Jackson landed a role in Jungle Fever, directed by Spike Lee. He played a crack addict, a role that hit uncomfortably close to home. But instead of breaking him, it became his breakthrough. It was raw. It was real. And it marked the rebirth of a talent that addiction had nearly erased forever. Morgan Freeman, a name that echoes through Hollywood with unmatched gravitas, a voice as timeless as the roles he's brought to life. For decades, he has stood as a towering figure in cinema, captivating audiences in masterpieces like The Shawshank Redemption, $1 Million Baby, and Bruce Almighty. His presence on screen is not just memorable, it's unforgettable. But behind that legendary career came a battle far more personal, far more brutal. One with no script, no spotlight, and no guarantee of survival. In February 2006, on what seemed like an ordinary spring morning, everything changed. After weeks of persistent chest pain and shortness of breath, Freeman received devastating news: lymphoma at the age of 70. What he once brushed off as simple exhaustion from a demanding schedule turned out to be something far more serious, something life-threatening. In an instant, the cameras stopped rolling. Projects were put on hold. And Freeman was thrust into a grueling fight against cancer. Chemotherapy took its toll. His hair thinned, his body weakened, and there were moments when even his spirit wavered. But giving up was never part of his story. With quiet strength and unshakable resolve, Morgan Freeman faced the disease head-on. Wearing his signature calm and resilience like armor, he refused to let illness define him. Instead, he returned to the screen, speaking openly about his journey, almost as if daring death itself to stand in his way. Though time and illness may have changed his physical strength, his passion remains untouched. Today, every role he takes on feels deeper, more urgent, like a man racing not against time, but against fate itself. For Morgan Freeman, acting is no longer just an art. It is proof of a spirit that refuses to break, no matter how cruel the battle. Wanda Sykes, the queen of comedy, faced a battle far quieter than her punchlines, but far more powerful than any stage she's ever owned: breast cancer. Known for her razor-sharp wit, fearless voice, and unmistakable style, Wanda isn't just an Emmy-winning comedian. She's a trailblazer, a truth-teller, and a passionate advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and social justice. She spent her life making millions laugh. But behind that laughter was a fight most people never saw coming. In the fall of 2011, on a calm autumn morning, sunlight gently spilling through the hospital windows, Wanda lay recovering from what she thought was a routine breast reduction surgery. But in a single moment, everything changed. Doctors delivered the kind of news that stops time. Cancer cells had been found in her breast tissue. It was a shock that cut deep. Wanda had always taken pride in her health. She was strong, disciplined, in control. But suddenly, she was facing something unpredictable, something terrifying. And she didn't hesitate. Determined to take control of her future, Wanda made a bold, life-altering decision. She underwent a double mastectomy, choosing to remove the threat at its source. What followed were days filled with pain, both physical and emotional. Standing in front of the mirror, she saw a different version of herself. A body forever changed. A piece of her femininity gone. But Wanda Sykes doesn't back down. Instead of letting fear define her, she met it head-on. With courage, with honesty, and yes, with humor. She opened up about her journey, using her gift for storytelling to turn pain into power and vulnerability into strength. What could have been a private struggle became a source of hope for thousands of women facing the same fight. Because for Wanda, cancer wasn't the end of her story. It was a test. A moment that proved even in life's darkest chapters, strength can rise, laughter can heal, and courage can shine brighter than fear. Muhammad Ali. A champion who spent a lifetime fighting his toughest opponent, Parkinson's disease. Muhammad Ali was more than just a boxer, he was a force of nature. A name that once echoed through arenas and sent chills down the spines of his opponents. With lightning speed, unmatched charisma, and unshakable confidence, he didn't just win fights, he defined an era. A three-time heavyweight champion, Ali was undefeated where it mattered most, in spirit, in courage, and in the power of his voice. But even legends are not immune to fate. In the fall of 1984, on a quiet, gray afternoon in Louisville, the world seemed to stand still. Inside a small doctor's office, Ali sat in silence, his eyes heavy with uncertainty. Then came the words that would change everything. Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis struck harder than any punch he had ever taken. As he held the report in his once invincible hands, a faint tremor began, subtle but undeniable. For the first time in his life, the man who had conquered giants felt powerless. The hands that once ruled the ring began to betray him. As the years passed, especially through the 1990s, the disease slowly tightened its grip. His voice, once bold, poetic, and fearless, grew softer, fading into silence. Public appearances became rare. The world watched as a man who once danced like the wind became confined within his own body. It was a battle with no final round, no referee to stop the fight. And yet, Ali never surrendered. Even as his physical strength declined, his spirit burned brighter than ever. He faced each day with quiet resilience, transforming pain into purpose. No longer fighting for titles, he fought to inspire, becoming a symbol of perseverance, dignity, and unbreakable will. Parkinson's may have taken his speed, his voice, and his physical power, but it could never touch his legacy. Because Muhammad Ali didn't just fight opponents. He fought fear. He fought injustice. And in the end, he fought with a courage that made the whole world believe. James Earl Jones. A battle with diabetes, and a fight for survival. Few voices in Hollywood carry the weight, power, and unmistakable presence of James Earl Jones. A legend whose deep, commanding tone shaped generations, he mesmerized audiences across decades, whether as the noble king in The Lion King or the chilling, iconic voice behind Darth Vader in Star Wars. His performances weren't just memorable, they were timeless. But behind the brilliance and acclaim, his life took a quiet, devastating turn. In the late 1990s, Jones was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, A moment that changed everything. What began as subtle warning signs, unshakable fatigue, drifting off during rehearsals, unexplained weight loss, soon revealed a far more dangerous reality. The disease crept in silently, tightening its grip, turning everyday life into a relentless fight for control. The toll was brutal. His body weakened. Blood pressure surged. His vision began to fade. Every day became a careful balancing act, a constant struggle to maintain stability. And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, it began to take away his presence on screen. The physical demands became too great, forcing him to step back from the spotlight he once dominated, retreating into voice work, away from the unforgiving gaze of the public. But James Earl Jones refused to be defined by illness. Instead, he rose, stronger, wiser, and more determined. He transformed his struggle into strength, using the very voice that made him legendary to inspire millions facing their own battles. His journey became more than a story of survival. It became a testament to resilience. Because in the face of adversity, James Earl Jones proved one powerful truth: even when life tries to silence you, your voice can still change the world. The woman the world sees as untouchable was quietly fighting a battle no spotlight could reveal. She isn't just a singer, a songwriter, a producer, or an actress. She's a cultural icon, a global force, a living legend whose voice has shaped generations. From her early rise with Destiny's Child to her reign as a solo powerhouse, she has always carried herself like royalty, flawless, fearless, unstoppable. But behind the brilliance and the applause, there was a chapter few truly saw. After welcoming her twins, Rumi and Sir, in 2017, what should have been one of the most joyful moments of her life became something far more complicated. Beneath the surface, Beyoncé was battling postpartum depression, a silent, suffocating weight that crept into her mind and spirit. The demands of caring for two newborns while maintaining the relentless pace of global superstardom began to take their toll, pushing her beyond exhaustion. Yet the deepest struggle wasn't physical. It was the storm inside her mind, the intrusive thoughts, the self-doubt, the overwhelming sense of losing herself. She has spoken about looking in the mirror and not recognizing the woman staring back. The confidence that once defined her felt distant. In its place was a quiet fear that she wasn't enough. Not enough as a mother. Not enough as a wife. Not enough as the artist the world expected her to be. But Beyoncé doesn't break, she transforms. Instead of hiding from the darkness, she faced it head-on. She poured her pain into her art, using music and movement to reclaim her voice and her identity. And in doing so, she gave strength to millions of women around the world. Women who were fighting the same invisible battle in silence. Because even queens fall, but the strongest ones rise, and help others rise with them. Tisha Campbell has spent a lifetime smiling through a pain most people will never see. Best known for her unforgettable roles in Martin and My Wife and Kids, she lit up the screen with humor, warmth, and unstoppable energy. But behind that vibrant presence lies a quiet, relentless struggle: sickle cell anemia, a lifelong condition that has tested her strength every single day. From an early age, she endured sudden waves of excruciating pain, striking deep within her bones and joints without warning. There were days when even the simplest movement felt impossible. And just as her career began to reach new heights, the illness became an unforgiving barrier, forcing her to step back from major opportunities at the very moment she was rising. For any performer, being held back by your own body is a heartbreak few can truly understand. But Tisha Campbell refused to let that be her story. She kept showing up, kept performing, kept making the world laugh, while quietly battling unimaginable pain between takes. Her journey isn't just about fame. It's about resilience, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of a woman who chose to shine, even in her darkest moments. Gabrielle Union is more than a Hollywood star. She's a true warrior. Known for her unforgettable roles in Bring It On and Bad Boys 2, she has long captivated audiences with her confidence, charisma, and undeniable presence. But behind the glamour and red carpet smiles lies a deeply personal battle that few could see. For years, Gabrielle silently endured the crushing pain of endometriosis, a condition that brought relentless discomfort, irregular cycles, and exhausting days that tested her strength. Still, she pushed forward, refusing to let the pain define her. It wasn't until she began trying to start a family that she received the devastating diagnosis, endometriosis, a disorder where tissue similar to the uterine lining grows outside the uterus, making pregnancy incredibly difficult. What followed was a heartbreaking journey. Gabrielle suffered 8 miscarriages, each one leaving a profound emotional wound, each one testing her resilience in unimaginable ways. The dream of motherhood felt like it was slipping further away with every loss. But even in her darkest moments, she refused to give up. Determined to rewrite her story, Gabrielle found another path forward. In 2018, she and her husband, former NBA star Dwayne Wade, welcomed their daughter, Kavia James, through surrogacy. It wasn't just the arrival of a child, it was a triumph over years of pain, heartbreak, and perseverance. Today, Gabrielle Union stands not only as a celebrated actress, but as a fearless voice for women battling endometriosis and infertility. By sharing her truth, she has broken the silence, shattered stigma, and inspired millions around the world. Her story is not just about struggle, it's about resilience, hope, and the unbreakable power of never giving up. Oprah Winfrey, a symbol of strength, brilliance, and unstoppable influence. To the world, she is a force of nature, a trailblazing talk show host, a visionary producer, a gifted actress, and a compassionate philanthropist who reshaped modern media. But behind the spotlight, Oprah was fighting a quiet, deeply personal battle, one that few could see. In the fall of 2007, she sat alone, holding a medical report that would change everything. The diagnosis: thyroid disease. It wasn't just a physical condition, it was a storm that affected her body, her energy, and her state of mind. Sudden weight gain, relentless fatigue, and emotional strain became part of her daily reality. For a woman who had spent a lifetime navigating public scrutiny over her weight, the news hit hard. The years that followed were anything but easy. Her body felt unpredictable, her energy drained, and the pressure of maintaining a global empire only intensified the struggle. Beneath the success was a woman wrestling with frustration, self-doubt, and the painful feeling of losing control over her own health. But Oprah didn't surrender. Instead of chasing perfection, she chose peace. Instead of bowing to unrealistic standards, she embraced authenticity. She shifted the narrative, not just for herself, but for millions, encouraging people to honor their bodies, listen to their needs, and redefine what true wellness really means. Because in the end, her greatest power wasn't just her success, it was her courage to heal, to accept, and to rise stronger than ever. Serena Williams, a name that echoes through history as one of the most dominant forces the sport has ever seen. With 23 Grand Slam singles titles, she didn't just win, she transformed the game, breaking barriers and redefining what greatness looks like in women's sports. On the court, she was unstoppable, pure power, fierce determination, and a spirit that refused to break. But behind the trophies and triumphs, there was a battle no audience could see. In September 2017, just after welcoming her daughter into the world, Serena faced one of the most terrifying moments of her life. What should have been a time of joy turned into a fight for survival. A pulmonary embolism, dangerous blood clots in her lungs, nearly took her life. The pain from her C-section, the struggle to breathe, and the overwhelming fear of the unknown turned her reality into something far darker than any match she had ever played. Yet the deepest wounds weren't physical. There were quiet days filled with doubt, moments where the strongest woman in tennis felt completely alone. For someone who had always controlled her destiny with strength and precision, motherhood brought a humbling truth: some battles can't be won with sheer willpower. The exhaustion, the pressure to be everything at once, and the shadow of postpartum depression tested her in ways no opponent ever could. But Serena didn't fall, she evolved. Instead of hiding her pain, she chose to speak it. She opened up about the harsh realities of postpartum recovery and the silent struggles so many women endure but rarely voice. In doing so, she became more than a champion of tennis, she became a voice for millions. Because Serena Williams proved something far greater than victory. Even the strongest warriors can break. But true strength is found in rising again, with honesty, courage, and compassion. Ricky Smiley, a man who spent a lifetime making the world laugh, is now facing a much quieter, more personal struggle. For decades, he lit up stages and airwaves with his signature humor, becoming a legendary voice in comedy and radio. But behind the applause and bright lights, reality began to set in. His body, worn down by years of relentless work, could no longer keep pace with the demands of the spotlight. Endless schedules, sleepless nights, and the pressure to always deliver slowly took their toll. While he continued to smile for his audience, those closest to him could see what others couldn't: the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of a body pushed far beyond its limits. In recent years, he's been forced to step back, cutting down appearances, putting projects on pause, and choosing his health over the stage that once defined him. Though he hasn't revealed every detail of his condition, one thing is clear: this is a deeply personal fight. The man who gave millions a reason to laugh is now holding on, fighting not just for his career, but for himself. Magic Johnson, an icon of greatness, a symbol of resilience, and a man whose fight extends far beyond the basketball court. Widely celebrated as one of the greatest players in NBA history, he led the Los Angeles Lakers to 5 championships, redefining what it meant to be a point guard with his brilliance, charisma, and electrifying style of play. But behind the glory lived a battle few could see. In 1991, after weeks of unexplained illness, Johnson received a diagnosis that would shake the world: HIV positive. At the time, it felt like an immediate death sentence. Yet the physical reality of the disease was only part of his struggle. What cut deeper was the wave of fear, ignorance, and rejection that followed. Rumors spread. Eyes judged. Even fellow players hesitated to share the court with him, gripped by misunderstanding and fear. He wasn't just fighting a virus, he was fighting a society that didn't yet understand it. Still, Magic Johnson refused to be defined by fear. Instead of retreating, he rose. He turned his pain into purpose, becoming a powerful voice in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Through advocacy, education, and relentless determination, he helped challenge stigma, change perceptions, and bring hope to millions. Decades later, thanks to medical advances and an unwavering commitment to his health, he continues to thrive, proving that his story was never about an ending, but about transformation. Today, Magic Johnson stands not only as a legend of the game, but as a living testament to courage, perseverance, and the power to turn adversity into legacy. Missy Elliott, a hip-hop icon, fighting a battle no one could see. For years, Missy Elliott dominated the industry with unstoppable hits like Get You Are, Freak On, Work It, and Lose Control. Her creativity didn't just shape her own career, it helped define an entire era of music, elevating countless artists along the way. She was energy, innovation, and pure genius rolled into one. But behind the fame, Missy was fighting a quiet war. In 2008, everything changed when she was diagnosed with Graves' disease, a relentless autoimmune condition that attacks the body from within. Suddenly, the woman known for her explosive stage presence was struggling with uncontrollable tremors, loss of coordination, and overwhelming exhaustion. There were moments she couldn't even hold a pen, moments where creating music, her greatest passion, felt impossible. Her body was turning against her. A racing heart, rapid weight loss, sleepless nights that never seemed to end. And the hardest truth of all, there is no permanent cure. For someone living life at full speed, the disease forced Missy to slow down, to step away, to rebuild her life around strict routines, careful health choices, and constant self-awareness, something almost unthinkable for a global superstar. But giving up? That was never her story. Missy Elliott chose to fight back. She took time to heal, to understand her body, and to reclaim her strength. And when she returned, she didn't just come back, she rose, stronger than ever. Today, she stands as more than a music legend. She is living proof that even in the face of chronic illness, true greatness cannot be silenced. Missy continues to create, to inspire, and to remind the world that resilience is the ultimate power. Toni Braxton, the golden voice behind some of the most unforgettable ballads in music history, has spent decades captivating the world with songs like Unbreak My Heart, Breathe Again, and He Wasn't Man Enough. With 7 Grammy Awards and a legacy cemented in the golden era of 90s R&B, she rose to become one of the most powerful voices of her generation. But just as her star burned brightest, a silent and devastating enemy began to take hold. In 2008, after years of unexplained exhaustion, pain, and weakness, she was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus, a cruel autoimmune condition where the body turns against itself. For a singer whose gift depends on breath and strength, a disease that attacks the heart and lungs felt like a cruel twist of fate, almost like a death sentence to her voice. What followed were some of the darkest chapters of her life. There were days when the pain was so overwhelming she could barely rise from bed. Her heartbeat became unpredictable, her breathing strained, and one by one, performances had to be cancelled. It felt as if the career she had built with so much passion was slowly slipping away. At her lowest point, she even questioned whether she would ever return to the stage again. But Toni Braxton refused to be silenced. With relentless determination, she faced her illness head-on, seeking treatment, reshaping her lifestyle, and learning how to live with a body that often fought against her. And through it all, she never let go of her greatest gift. She kept singing. She kept showing up. She kept proving that while lupus may test her limits, it could never take her voice or her spirit. Robin Roberts, The Fight for Life, Twice. Robin Roberts, the beloved face of Good Morning America, has always radiated warmth, strength, and unshakable optimism. But behind that signature smile lies a story few truly grasp, a journey marked not by one, but 2 brutal, life-threatening battles. In 2007, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a word that instantly strikes fear into the hearts of millions. With courage as her only option, she stepped into a grueling fight. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. Each treatment took its toll. Her hair fell away. Her energy drained. The vibrant woman viewers adored was pushed to her limits. And just when it seemed she had won, life tested her again. In 2012, Roberts was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS, a rare and devastating condition that cripples the body's ability to produce healthy blood cells. This time, survival depended on a bone marrow transplant, her last and only chance. What followed was nothing short of a nightmare. After undergoing the transplant in September 2012, her immune system was left dangerously fragile. She spent months in isolation, fighting through severe complications, enduring pain, uncertainty, and moments where even she questioned if she would make it. But she did. Step by step, breath by breath, Robin Roberts fought her way back. Stronger, braver, unbreakable. When she returned to television, she didn't just come back as a host. She returned as a symbol of resilience, courage, and hope. Today, she is more than a journalist. She is a survivor in every sense of the word, using her voice to champion cancer awareness and bone marrow donation, turning her darkest moments into light for millions still fighting their own battles. Regina King has long been celebrated as one of Hollywood's most powerful and versatile performers, a woman whose presence commands the screen and whose talent has earned her an Academy Award and multiple Emmys. But behind the brilliance and applause lies a deeply personal, often unseen struggle. Away from the spotlight, she has faced a quiet, relentless battle with depression, an invisible weight that doesn't discriminate even against the strongest souls. Driven by perfection and fueled by high expectations, she carried the pressure of fame, career demands, and personal life in silence. Then came a heartbreak no parent should ever endure, the devastating loss of her son. In that moment, everything changed. Grief didn't just knock, it consumed. Dark thoughts crept in. Nights became endless. And for the woman the world saw as unshakable, there were moments she felt completely lost within her own mind. The pain was silent, isolating, and nearly impossible to put into words. But she didn't let that darkness define her. Instead, she made a choice, a powerful, courageous choice, to seek help, to confront her pain, and to begin healing. She leaned into vulnerability, embraced mental health care, and found a new form of expression through directing, using art not just as a craft, but as a lifeline. Today, Regina King stands not just as a survivor, but as a symbol of resilience. Her journey is a reminder that even in the deepest grief, even when everything feels broken, there is still a path forward. And sometimes, that path begins with simply choosing to keep going. Darryl Strawberry, a name once synonymous with power, glory, and baseball greatness, brought to his knees by a battle he never saw coming. At the height of his career, Strawberry was more than just a star. He was a force of nature. A dominant hitter who lit up stadiums and left fans in awe, he became a beloved icon for both the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. His swing, his presence, his moments of brilliance, they felt larger than life. But just as everything seemed untouchable, fate struck without warning. In 1998, Strawberry was diagnosed with colon cancer, a devastating blow that ripped him away from the game he loved. Forced into a grueling 2-hour surgery to remove part of his colon, he went from roaring crowds to silent hospital rooms. While his teammates chased victories on the field, he was fighting a far more brutal battle behind closed doors, one filled with pain, fear, and uncertainty. And just when it seemed like he might overcome it, the nightmare returned. In 2000, the cancer came back, more aggressive, more unforgiving. His body weakened, his health spiraled, and with it, the career he had built began to slip through his fingers. Retirement was no longer a choice. It was a reality he couldn't escape. But the deepest wounds weren't just physical. Behind the scenes, Strawberry battled crushing depression, grappling with the heartbreak of watching his dreams slowly disappear. The spotlight faded, replaced by doubt, despair, and a fight that tested every ounce of his strength. Yet even in his darkest moments, he refused to break. Instead of letting his pain define him, Strawberry transformed it into purpose. He rose again, not as a baseball player, but as a voice of hope. Today, he dedicates his life to inspiring others, helping cancer patients, and guiding those who feel lost in their own battles. He may have stepped off the field, but his greatest fight, and his greatest victory, was just beginning. Stevie Wonder, a life forever changed by a life-saving kidney transplant, and a career forced into an uncertain pause. The legendary voice behind timeless classics like Superstition, Isn't She Lovely, and I Just Called to Say I Love You didn't just make music, he defined generations. From a blind child prodigy to one of the greatest artists in history, he rose against every odd, conquering the world with unmatched talent, soul, and creativity that knew no limits. But even icons aren't untouchable. Behind the brilliance, a silent battle was unfolding. For years, chronic kidney disease had been quietly draining his strength, until, in 2019, he stunned fans with a deeply personal revelation. He needed a kidney transplant to survive. Concerts were canceled. The spotlight dimmed. And for the first time, his health took center stage. That December, he underwent a life-saving surgery that would ultimately change everything. During recovery, he all but disappeared from public view, surfacing only briefly to reassure worried fans. But the truth was far more intense than anyone could see. Though the transplant was successful, it marked a profound turning point, not just in his health, but in his entire life. Since then, Stevie Wonder has had to slow down, stepping back from the relentless pace that once defined his career. Performances became rare. His lifestyle transformed. Every note, every appearance now carefully measured, not just to protect his health, but to preserve the voice that changed the world. Because sometimes, even legends have to fight just to keep the music alive. Brian McKnight, a voice once described as pure velvet, now faces a battle no artist ever prepares for. For more than 3 decades, Brian McKnight didn't just sing, he defined the sound of modern R&B. With unmatched control, silky tone, and soul-stirring emotion, he built a legacy as a singer, songwriter, and producer whose music became the soundtrack to countless lives. His voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. But behind the spotlight, a devastating reality began to unfold. At the height of his enduring career, McKnight revealed in 2023 that he had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder, one that silently attacks the nervous system, weakening the body and, most painfully, stealing away the very gift that made him iconic. The voice that once soared effortlessly through impossible high notes began to fade, note by note. Songs that once flowed naturally became a struggle. Each performance turned into a painful reminder that something was slipping away. Imagine mastering your craft for a lifetime, only to wake up one day and no longer recognize your own voice. The man who once commanded stages with ease now faced the heartbreaking challenge of singing even the simplest melodies. Concerts were canceled. Dreams were put on hold. And a question lingered in the air: would he ever sing the same way again? Yet through it all, Brian McKnight continues to fight. Through treatment, through uncertainty, through fear. Because when your voice is your identity, losing it isn't just physical, it's deeply personal. And every single day, he lives with that reality, holding on to hope, while knowing that everything could change again in an instant. Debbie Allen. The knee injury that nearly silenced a dance icon. Debbie Allen, an undeniable force in the world of art, etched her legacy across Broadway, television, and the global dance stage. Her name became synonymous with passion, discipline, and brilliance. But just as her career was reaching breathtaking heights, everything changed. After decades of pushing her body beyond its limits, by early 2018, the toll could no longer be ignored. What began as persistent knee pain quickly spiraled into something far more devastating. The damage worsened with time, and repeated injuries turned even the simplest movement into excruciating pain. Every step became a battle. Every performance, a risk. For a dancer, movement is more than expression, it's identity. And losing that ability can feel like losing a piece of your soul. The hardest truth Debbie had to face wasn't the pain itself, but the heartbreaking decision to step away from the stage she loved so deeply, accepting that her body could no longer keep pace with her spirit. But Debbie Allen didn't let that be the end of her story. Instead of surrendering to the pain, she redefined her purpose. She stepped behind the scenes, directing, choreographing, and shaping the future of dance by mentoring the next generation. Though she may no longer command the stage with her own movement, her influence still moves millions. Because true legends don't fade, they evolve. Viola Davis, a true queen of the screen, has captivated the world with her raw, unforgettable performances in Fences, The Help, and How to Get Away with Murder. Her presence is powerful, her talent undeniable. But behind the spotlight and standing ovations lies a quiet, deeply personal battle few could see. Long before the awards and global recognition, she was a young girl growing up in crushing poverty, surrounded by hunger, violence, and the harsh realities of racial injustice. Those early wounds didn't simply fade with success. They followed her, lingering beneath the surface, shaping a silent struggle with depression that fame could never erase. Even at the height of her career, when the world saw strength, confidence, and brilliance, she was fighting moments of darkness that felt impossible to escape. For someone admired as a symbol of resilience, admitting vulnerability was its own kind of courage. But instead of letting that darkness define her, she chose to confront it. Through therapy, self-reflection, and an unwavering commitment to her mental health, she transformed her pain into purpose. Today, Viola Davis is more than just an award-winning actress. She is a voice for the unseen battles so many people face, reminding the world that strength isn't about hiding your scars, it's about having the courage to face them. Queen Latifah is more than just a star, she's a force of nature. A true trailblazer who dominated music, film, and television, she's earned her place among the greats with Grammy Awards, Emmy Awards, and Golden Globe Awards to her name. She shattered ceilings for Black women in both Hollywood and hip-hop, redefining what success looks like on her own terms. But behind that unshakable confidence was a deeply personal struggle, one she carried quietly for years. Throughout her life, she faced challenges with obesity, all while navigating an industry obsessed with impossible beauty standards. Instead of being celebrated solely for her talent, she often found herself under a harsh spotlight, judged more for her appearance than her accomplishments. The pressure to maintain a certain image wasn't just physical, it was emotional and relentless. Yet Queen Latifah refused to be defined by those expectations. Rather than chasing perfection, she chose something far more powerful: authenticity. She focused on her health, embraced balance, and committed to self-love. In doing so, she sent a clear message to the world. Your worth is not measured by a number on a scale. It's defined by how you see yourself. Her journey is not just inspiring, it's transformative. By standing firm in her truth, she continues to challenge outdated beauty standards and empower others to do the same. Because real strength doesn't come from fitting in, it comes from owning who you are. Stories like hers remind us that fame and fortune don't shield anyone from life's toughest battles. So what do you think? Whose story impacted you the most? Who inspires you with their strength and resilience? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, every story in this video is carefully gathered from trusted sources. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story.